conversation and bring in John Kilduff. I think we've got him up and running. He's a CNBC contributor and founding partner of Again Capital. John, we're talking about this at the Open. Explain this weird dichotomy to me because I don't get it, right? You'd think with surging gas prices, you'd have a banner year for solar and wind, and yet we're not really seeing that. So why is that?
Good afternoon, Eamon. And sorry about that before, but let me just say that I think there's a lot of trepidation these days about some of these renewable systems, given how intermittent they have proven to be when it's become crunch time. Spectacularly, not too long ago in Texas, when the grid failed in the winter, we were on pins and needles just a few weeks ago with that heavy heat wave that ripped through Texas. That the grid might not hold up, but it did, thankfully, and renewables were a big part of it. But there's just not a lot of enthusiasm for folks right now because of the situation that we've seen people be in, not just here, but in the UK and Europe especially.
How much of it is just the timing, right? Short-term versus long-term. Short-term, it's easier to just double down, increase production where you're already getting it, rather than making some of these longer-term investments in things like solar and wind.
Well, certainly the supply chain hiccups are impacting the renewable space. But yeah, I mean, all reliable is hydrocarbons. I mean, you can count on the gasoline in your tank, completely, as opposed to worrying about having range anxiety and the like with some of the electric vehicles, for example. But yes, I think right now, given the inflation situation, given the uncertain economic outlook, there's just not a lot of embrace of new renewable systems right now. I think the government's going to have to step up yet again and pick a winner here and encourage folks to get into that space much more heavily.
And tell us about these oil exports from the United States, because a lot of people still aren't used to that, right? It was just during the Obama administration that we even allowed oil exports to go out of the U.S. market. Why is it that we're continuing to allow exports even in the teeth of what we see here in terms of high gas prices? Is that political? Is that about our allies overseas? Or is that about the mix of oil that we need in our refineries here at home?
Well, for starters, it is the mix. Most of the shale oil is very light and sweet, as we call it, not really suitable for much of our Gulf Coast refining complex, which relies on heavier sour-type crudes like what used to come from Venezuela, for example. So, and it wouldn't be very sporting of us during these tough times, I don't think, to cut off other countries from our fuel supplies, not just crude oil, but we are big exporters these days of refined products. We are the refiner for democracy these days, the way we used to be the arsenal of democracy.
So there are some politics, or at least geopolitics in this one. Explain where you think prices are going to go from here, given everything that you've just laid out.
We are in the major crunch time right now. This is the height of the summer driving season. This weekend, there's going to be strong demand, record driving, and we continue to see now the rebound in China evolve, and because of their COVID restrictions, and they also gave a huge chunk of crude oil permissioning to their independent refiners, which could make a difference in the refined product market down the road here. So there's a lot of moving parts as usual, Eamon, but I think there's a bit more higher to go. Maybe we touch 120 one more time, but I think we could see some real relief as we get deeper into the year in, say, late August and the early fall period.
The driving season begins this weekend. John, are you driving anywhere, taking your gas guzzler out?
No, my gas guzzler is going to stay local, Eamon, maybe just go as far as the golf course at this point.
Fair enough. Have a great weekend. John Kilduff.